I'm so excited to introduce you to our guest today. Julie Duffy is a writer and coach and the founder of StoryADay May, Creative Writing Challenge. And she has a whole community of writers. She is one of Writer's Digest picks for 101 best websites for writers for many years. She helps writers become more productive, creative, and fulfilled. She's originally from Scotland. You'll notice her beautiful accent, and she now lives in Pennsylvania with her husband and children. When she's not writing, she knits and juggles, though rarely at the same time. We discuss how writing can give you a place to express yourself. We also talk about, for perfectionists, just being able to lower the bar and do something throughout so that you complete. And this is something that can help you also establish trust with yourself, which we talk about there as well. And even just being able to have time to express what you're feeling, what you're noticing about a situation, putting your feelings into characters and being able to just process things in that way. I think you're really going to enjoy this. So welcome my next guest, Julie Duffy.
So welcome to the podcast, Julie. I'm so happy that you could be here because I have many, many women that reach out to me and say, I've been trying to write a book, or I've been trying to write. I dabble in writing, or I used to write, or I was on my school paper and I wrote all the time and I don't anymore. But I just thought this would be such a great topic to be able to ask somebody about. So tell us a little bit about Story a Day, first of all, and tell us where that got its beginning.
Yeah, so I had this crazy idea for StoryADay May back in 2010. And the reason I did this, I was at that point, I had quite young children and I'd always written, I'd always wanted to write. That was going to be my career and kind of got sidetracked a little bit. And so I wanted to be writing creatively, and I kind of wasn't. So I started trying to encourage myself to write short stories because I love short stories and they seemed more manageable than novels. And there is this challenge out there in the writing world called NaNoWriMo. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but it's National Novel Writing Month and it's in November every year. And that started probably in 2000 or so, maybe, no, it must have been before that, in the 90s. There were other challenges as well, but there was nothing for short story writers. And so I was envious. And then I thought, well, maybe I should just do it myself, challenge myself to do this. So I figured that since I wasn't writing much, and when I did write, I couldn't finish anything, the logical thing to me seemed to be to challenge myself to write a story every day. And I picked May because it rhymed and it was a couple of months away from when I was thinking about this. So every day in May, I was going to write and finish a story because look, if you're not doing something, then challenge yourself to do something crazy and large. So I did that and I told a couple of writing friends and they told a few friends and they told a few friends. And this was in the early-ish days of blogging. And so the word spread and I was like, all right. So all of a sudden I was doing this thing and a whole bunch of people had said, I'll do that too. So I started StoryADay May back in 2010. And the first couple of days I could put a couple of writing prompts up on my website. And then on about day 3, I was like, I'm busy, I'm writing. And I didn't post a prompt. And people started emailing me to say, where's the writing prompt? And I'm like, oh, right. I'm leading this thing, I guess. So then I started putting writing prompts out every day and they haven't let me stop ever since. So every May I issue 31 writing prompts and people join me and we try and write a story a day every day in May.
Okay, that is amazing to think of every single day writing a short story. I love the idea that people, like other people obviously felt called to it. It wasn't like you were alone and yeah, it drove a whole little community.
Well, there's something very for your topic in that if you are trying to write and finish a story every day, or if you're taking part in any other kind of writing challenge like this, it really does a number on your perfectionism. Because you are, I mean, the understanding is if you're writing a story a day for a month, you're not going to be writing 31 great stories. Like none of the stories has to be wonderful, brilliant, world-changing works of genius, right? They just have to be done for you to be able to call it a win. And there's something about lowering the bar of expectation that really frees up your creative mind to actually get the work done. Because if you can sit down, if you sit down to write and you're like, I am going to write the first story I've written for 20 years and it's going to be fabulous because everybody always told me I was a good writer. There's no way. You're not going to get one word on the page, never mind the complete story. So there's something about these challenges which are so ridiculous that they really destroy perfectionism. And if you are a people pleaser, then doing them in community is absolutely key. And that's, I think, why these things become these big events. And certainly my community has grown up around that, to the point where I was finding that I had people who were only writing during the challenge and they would go away for a year and come back and be like, and so I made sure that the community was part of it, because I figured if you're going to be the kind of person like me and so many sensitive people that you're a people pleaser, let's harness that and make it work for us. So there, I've covered 2 of your P's already.
I love it. I think this topic around writing, and I think around anything that you want to commit to. I mean, it could be anything. Is an area where when somebody has said something to you in your past, whether it was when you're a kid and you're in school and somebody said like you are so good at writing, you should write more, or this is terrible, right? It can be either way.
Yeah.
You carry that with you, and it really can discourage you and make you either feel like I should never do it again, or I have this thing that I should be doing this because I'm supposed to be good at this.
Yeah. And
And
I
so
should be
you
good
must see
at it
that.
and I should never
Yeah,
fail, right?
that's right. That's right. Every story should be brilliant.
Mm.
Yeah. So, what type of people does this attract? Because I'm really curious whether are they people who have always written or new people,
It
or what do you get?
This challenge tends to attract people who always wanted to write, and they
Mm,
probably wrote a lot when they were kids. And they may not have written anything for a while, or they may be people who've kept up their writing as they've gone on, but they know them. I mean, these challenges have been around for long enough now that they may know themselves well enough to know that they need them. They need external push. But yeah, for this type of challenge, I do tend to get a lot of people who always wanted to be writers, but have either mostly have suppressed it or fallen away from it because life gets in the way. And just being given this opportunity, this invitation to take a month out of your life and say to people, you know what, I'm going to make this a priority for this month, and you might need to help out around the house a little more. And you might need to give me that hour after dinner, or I'm going to be getting up early, so don't expect me to be around to make breakfast. Whatever it is, people somehow giving themselves the permission to do it just for a month, just for this limited time, lets them recapture a dream that was always there. And it's not necessarily people who are immediately going to want to go pro, although I think all writers harbor a, a secret dream of being published and being an overnight success and sitting on the Good Morning America sofa or something. But it does tend to be people who find it hard to give themselves permission otherwise will give themselves permission to do it in this defined month of the challenge.
right. So, when this first started, how long had it been? Like, how had your writing career skills patterns? What were they?
I had written a lot when I was younger, and I always journaled, always, always. I never really know what I'm thinking unless it's on the page, unless I've got a pen in my hand. So I had always journaled, and I had written stories throughout school. And then once you start studying, like I've got these books up here these are my college textbooks from English Lit when I did that for a couple of years at university. And then I dropped it because I realized I was starting to hate literature and writing because of when you've studied it for that long, it it sucks all the fun out of it, and you're just constantly analyzing. You're not reading for pleasure anymore, and you're certainly not writing for pleasure. So like a lot of people, I think during high school and college, I stopped writing. And I remember one time I had a friend who was going through a really hard time and I didn't know what to do for her. And so I wrote a story, and it was like a fairy story with a monster in it that represented the things she was going through. And her reaction to that was, oh my goodness, you understand what I'm saying. You understand what I'm going through. And that really, because I was embarrassed to show it to her, and that cemented for me the power of fiction. And a lot of people will say that they don't read fiction because they want to feel like they're learning something. And I'm always like, there's a lot of truth in fiction. There's a lot of, we, we learn to relate to each other through fiction. So I understood the power of it, but I fell away from it again because after you leave college, you've got a need to earn a living. And so I was earning a living, and those things don't happen easily in fiction writing. There's not a huge amount of predictability, or there's not a lot of strategy you can employ to make sure you're one of the people that gets well paid in fiction. There's a lot of luck involved. So I did a lot of other things. I worked in shops. I worked as an editorial assistant in a publishing house. I worked, oh gosh, what else did I do? I did freelance writing for businesses. And when you're doing that and you're using the same brain muscles, the same skills to write nonfiction and business stuff, then it doesn't leave a lot of energy and time to write fiction. So I stopped doing that a little bit. And then when I had my kids, they take up all your attention and energy. But when they went out to school, I had this little bit of time and energy again. And I thought, I really want to this is my time to, um, to give back, to explore this talent and this urge that I have. And so that was when I started trying to write again, and it wasn't really working. And that's when I decided I really needed a big challenge to focus me. And that's where StoryADay was born.
That is beautiful. I love the idea that when we're looking for something, even just to validate ourselves, right? Like internally rather than externally from somewhere else. Sometimes it's just giving ourselves that permission to say, just try it. Just try it for this long. And I love that you put a limit on it, because I teach that a lot, that it doesn't have to be something that's forever,
Right.
right? So there's just putting that time limit gives you that bit of freedom and yet structure that allows you to
Yeah.
get it done.
Yeah. Makes it seem more possible. It makes it seem, especially for people who are, when I was a stay-at-home mom, and there's definitely in our culture if you're not earning, you're not productive kind of feeling.
Mm,
Not that my husband was like that, but there's just like this, especially as somebody who grew up ambitious. And then to
yes.
suddenly be staying at home for reasons that were mine and my choice. And I was grateful to be able to do it. But then you feel like you should be there for other people all the time. And to
Mhm,
put a limit around something like this is much more manageable.
mhm,
Say, I'm going to do this for a month, or I'm going to do it for a certain amount of time, is much more manageable. And it's not that you need to ask permission from the people in your life, but you need to give yourself permission. And sometimes that's easier if it's just, well, it's only for a month, or it's only for this week, or it's only. So putting those limits on it is helpful. And I found, I mean, as soon as I started doing that, saying to my husband, right, I'm going to go upstairs after dinner. You good? Got the kids? Fine. I'm going to go upstairs for an hour or so. And it like felt so huge to say, I'm going to go away from these two small people who've been like with me for 7 years without a break. I'm going to go away for an hour and close my door. Felt huge. And then he was the one who spotted that when I did that, after a few days, I was so much happier, looser. I came back downstairs and I was just much more fun to be around. And after a few days of me like asking for permission almost to go away and do my writing, it didn't take very long before he was like, you should go do some writing. Do that thing that makes you happy, because we like you when you're doing that. So
yeah.
not for everyone that's not writing, but there's always, when we take some time to uh, be ourselves and do the things that feed us, people notice, and
Mhm.
and the good ones notice quickly.
Yes. Yes. I'm often saying, like, to put yourself on your list, because we do, especially as moms, but we shove ourselves to the bottom and we help everybody else, and people pleasers for sure like to
Yeah.
be super helpful and always at the bottom. So I think this is
And
a wonderful way to do that.
we've all heard that we should put ourselves on our list, and we've all heard that you got to fill your own cup before you can
That's
fill
right.
anyone else's. All of these things, and it's the same. There's something that was one of these same truisms in writing, is that you have to allow your first draft to be kind of messy and all that, and everybody knows it and everybody says it, but it's really hard to let yourself do it and
Mhm.
experience it and live it, which is why we need to keep being told these things, and we need to keep seeking out different ways to internalize that and try it out for ourselves. So yeah, I'm glad you're pushing people to do that too.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's interesting too that you are, I mean, you're allowing women to set a bar that's achievable. You're giving them permission to set boundaries by setting that time for themselves. And I would think, and you could correct me, but I would think that people are coming out of this feeling probably more confident,
Oh my goodness, yeah.
because they've given themselves, like, I achieved something, I am capable. right?
Yeah.
What I've done, I followed through and I actually did it. Whether it's great writing or horrible writing, it doesn't matter. Like you
Yeah, and
achieved that goal.
exactly, and that, like, uh, defining your goals for yourself is important, but actually, like, living up to your expectations of yourself for yourself, it makes everything better in life. I mean,
Mhm.
I have people who I've asked them, what does, now that they're doing your writing for a while and they come out at the end of the challenge or they're in my group, I say, now that you are writing more, what does that do for you? And they say things like, I'm happier, I'm easier to live with, but they also say things like, my day job is easier. I make decisions more easily just because they're feeding that part of themselves. They're treating themselves with respect. They're doing difficult things. They're wrangling characters and making decisions for them, and they are just producing things. They are pushing themselves. They're stretching themselves. It's like when you work out and you feel terrible while you're doing it, maybe if you're me, but afterwards you get that like, I did that and I feel stronger. And that is true for habit stuff as well, and for things like writing. So I do. I get people who tell, literally, somebody said to me, my day job is easier when my writing is going well.
That's fantastic. I mean, I think when you develop trust in yourself, right? Because we often break trust with ourselves. We say we're going to do something, we don't do it. But then when we do follow through, we increase trust in ourselves. And that would carry through to every area of our lives that we would feel like, I can make this decision. I do know what I'm doing. I am capable. So, what a beautiful gift you're giving by offering this challenge out.
And I think it's also that thing about trusting yourself is really important. And it's, once you get into a spiral of not trusting yourself, it's really hard to make yourself do all the things which would make you feel better, which is why I think doing things like this in community is so important. Because when you get together and you listen, even if you're just listening to a podcast like this and you're hearing other people who are going through similar stuff, or if you're in a community or a group or a challenge or something like that, you just, you're always, other people are more generous to you than you are. You see possibilities that are there for you that you might not admit to yourself. You make commitments to other people. I'll turn up for that writing sprint tomorrow if you will. I'll do that thing I promised to do. And then once you've said it to someone, you have to do it. You have to do it, whether or not you would do it if you were just alone with your doubts. So I really think that, as an introvert, I'm saying this, I really believe that community and accountability and using the power of the group is hugely important, because we have had that trust broken in ourselves. And I hadn't thought of it that way. So it's a beautiful way to put it. And that just makes it so hard for us to do the things that we know are good for us, which makes us feel even worse, which makes us spiral down. So yeah, getting out of ourselves and being with other people who are hoping to achieve or aspiring to achieve something, or aspiring to improve ourselves is really powerful.
Yeah. And I would imagine that for people who are thinking like they would like to write a book someday, or maybe they just want to even write their own life story just to leave to their kids or those types of things, this is a good place to start because sometimes if you have that huge goal, you just need some consistency with a smaller goal in order to start taking the bigger steps.
And there's things, I mean, I love short stories themselves because they are this weird little form. There's all kinds of different types of short stories. They're not just mini novels, but there are some more traditional narrative forms of short story which do allow you to get in the habit of telling a story that has a beginning, a middle, an end, that pulls the reader through. And that's actually something that's worth practicing for anything in life, because you don't want to be the person at the party who's telling the boring story and everyone's going, get to the point, get to the point. Like, if you can learn to tell better stories, you engage people, you find people connecting with you. If you can write a letter with a great story in it to your grandkids, they're going to know you better. So this idea of writing short pieces is, and learning to craft a story that pulls people in is really valuable. The idea of consistency, one of the things that I've done now between challenges, I have a group that I run where we get together and we write together. We do writing sprints, we do classes, but it's year round now, because I found that people were going away and coming back once a year, and then they'd lost a bunch of the progress that they'd made. So I'm sort of definitely leaning into that community and accountability and consistency thing. But yeah, I think that like the big project is very, very overwhelming. And chipping away at like, especially like if you're writing a memoir, thinking about just writing little incidents, things that you remember, things that mattered to you, things, you know, places you've been or lived, and getting the kind of details that you can learn in from narrative fiction writing and using them to make scenes come alive for people. These are all I'm on a rant. They're all wonderful skills, and I think writing for self-expression is hugely important. I'm always encouraging people to take a step back when they talk about getting published. I'm always like, no, let's back up the truck a little bit here and just think about getting the writing done, because there's so much value in writing as to understand and to sort of catalog your life and understand what you're going through. And then if you have a creative fiction bent, then you can take those experiences and that understanding that you have of humanity and put them into stories that will connect with other people. But just in terms of a personal development exercise, I think that journaling and writing is a really, really powerful and good habit to get into.
Yeah, and it can be a great form of self-expression. It's a great way to just have that creative outlet, allow your mind to decompress, just let things out as well.
And
Often we just bottle it up.
Give your problems to other characters and let them take revenge on the world, or let them have a laugh at something that you can't laugh at yet. And it can be very cathartic.
I love that. I love that. So tell us a little more about what you're doing in between, because you were saying now you have something going year round. What else are you up to with this?
I have a few things now that I offer to people when I'm not running the challenge in May. So there's a few things that I have. I have my year-round Superstars group, which is for people who want to be writing more often and in community and doing workshops with me year-round. I also have a 6-week course for people who want to sort of build a writing habit and write a bunch of short stories over that period. That's called my iWriter course. And then I have writing prompts that I send out every week. And I have a little 3-day challenge that I do, which is a little more of a toe in the water for people, but it teaches them a bunch of short story techniques, ways to think about your beginning, ways to think about your middle, ways to think about your end. And it gives you 3 days worth of instruction, so that people can actually not just be sitting down to write without having any direction, but actually turn out little short stories. Like I always write a Christmas story every year and send it to my family. So it's that kind of thing. You're learning the structure of a short story. That's my 3-day challenge. But yeah, so there's tons of stuff that people can find out and join in with at StoryADay.
Thank you so much for sharing with us. I think this is something that, whether you want to use it for your business, for your own personal just growth development and exploration, if it's something you want to do in community, whether it's something that you're looking in order to help yourself as a people pleaser or perfectionist or procrastinator. I mean, certainly it can help with all of those areas. But I love that this is something that you are leading through your own experience, and then have had so many others join in. What a beautiful story to be able to incorporate and pull and make a community out of.
There's a short story framework that I put together for people so that they can see how a short story is put together. And it's like a little Mad Lib thing. So I know I sent that to you, and I know you were going to put a link in the notes about that. And it's called my short story framework. So people should download that and have some fun with it.
Absolutely. And I know for some of us, we might not have written for years. And so it's nice to have a little bit of a prompt to be able to get us going and just feel like we're not totally on our own with a blank sheet of paper. So I love that you've done that. And I will definitely put those into our show notes. So where is the best place for somebody to connect with you, Julie, if they'd like to know more?
The best place is to come to storyaday.org. and just have a poke about there, see all of the offerings. And there's a blog and there's all those courses. They can also sign up for my newsletter there, which will get them a copy of that short story framework as well. And I hang out on Twitter and I hang out on Instagram a little bit. I'm not so good with Instagram, but I do hang out on Twitter a lot. But yeah, just storyaday.org is the best, is the hub where they can find everything StoryADay related.
That's perfect. And we will put all of the places that you can connect with Julie in our show notes. Thank you so much again for joining us today on Imperfection in Progress, Julie. And we're looking forward to getting to know you a bit better.
Thanks for having me.